Hello, today we're going to make a beginner headband using the Mariposa Wool Mill Super Bulky Rambouillet wool. You'll need the 10mm needle and the 40-meter skein of the Super Bulky Rambouillet wool found in the kit. The first thing you're going to do is to make a slip knot to slide the wool onto the needle. Make a loop, slide the needle through, and there's your slip knot. We'll try it again. Round, make your loop, slide the needle through that loop, and then start casting on your stitches. We're going to put 10 stitches on. Wrap the wool around your thumb, slide the needle through, off your thumb onto the needle. Around the thumb, needle through, off your thumb onto the needle for 10 stitches. If you want a narrower headband, you'll use fewer than 10 stitches, maybe 8. For my headband, I'm using 10 stitches. So I will cast on my 10 stitches. After you have your stitches cast on, move the needle to your left hand and we're going to start to do the knitting. The first row, put your needle through the loop, go around the needle, bring it back through, and slide it off. In, around, roll around, through, and off. Let's try it again. Needle in, wrap the wool around, slide the needle back through the loop, and off the needle. And you're going to continue doing this until all the stitches in the first row have been knit. Again, in, around, through, and off. Try to don't make your stitches too tight or it will be a little bit tricky. Keep them as loose as you can without them sliding off the needle. So you're going to get to the end of the row. I've got a few more here to go. In, sometimes it gets a little snug. So just be patient. Got 2 more to go. In, around, through, and off, down to your last stitch. And then you're going to move your work that you've just knitted into your left hand and start again. So you're holding your work in your left hand and you use your right hand to do your knitting. And remember to grab the long tail for your knitting, not the short end of the tail where you started off. So in, around, through, and off. In, around, through, and off. And while you're doing this, you're trying to not make your stitches too tight, nor do you want them to be too loose and sloppy. So you should be able to slide nicely on the needle and not stuck to the needle. So again, you're going to knit the 10 stitches or whatever number you have cast on. Go to the end of the row. Then you'll switch your work after you get this last stitch off. Move your work into your left hand and the other needle, and you're going to start again. Remember to use the long tail that's attached to the skein. And then you'll start knitting your next row. In every row, it's the same. You're going to start knitting the first stitch and knit all across to the last stitch. Then switch your work to your left hand and start over. You continue doing this, knitting every row until you get to the length that you want your headband to be. I measured my head first. I'm going to make my headband about 18 inches long, but you'll make your headband as long as you want. I like mine to be a little bit snug because as you wear it, it does stretch a little bit. So I'm making my headband 18 inches long, and I'll continue knitting every row until my headband is 18 inches long. Now my headband is 18 inches long. It's time to do the cast off. Get the stitches off. You knit the first 2 stitches. Then you take the first stitch you knit, slide it over the second stitch, and you're left with 1. Knit another stitch. Slide the first stitch over the second stitch. Knit another stitch. Slide the first stitch. Slide the first stitch over the second stitch, and there's 1 on the needle. Knit another stitch. Slide the first stitch over the second stitch, and there's the 1 on the needle. Knit another stitch. Slide the first over the second, and there's 1 stitch. Knit another stitch. Slide the first one over the second one and off the needle, and you're going to continue doing this until you're left with 1 stitch. Knit a stitch, so there's 2 on the needle. Slide the first one over the second one, off the needle, and there's 1. Knit. There's your 2 stitches. Slide the first one over the second one and off the needle. Then you're going to cut about an 18-inch tail. Cut that one off at about an 18-inch. Pull the tail through the loop to bind it off. Then we're going to sew the 2 ends together to form the headband. This is pretty thick wool, so you could use your fingers to sew the ends together, or you can use a darning needle with a blunt end and a large loop at the end. So you'll sew the 2 ends together as neatly as you can. And then when you have finished that, you'll weave in the loose ends. Again, you can use your fingers or a darning needle with a blunt end and a large loop. When you're finished, there's your first knitted super bulky Rambouillet headband.